Welcome back to another episode of Football Game Tonight. I'm your host, Sean Kuzma. We have a special free agency edition of the Football Game Tonight podcast. And in this podcast, we're going to talk about Kirk Cousins signing with the Falcons. So this was basically the biggest move in free agency. Everybody was wondering, what is Kirk Cousins going to do? Is he going to stay with the Vikings in Minnesota, or is he going to sign with the Atlanta Falcons? We know now that Kirk Cousins has signed with the Atlanta Falcons. He got a 4-year deal, which makes sense to me because if you go back to the Vikings situation, the past couple of years, the Vikings have been thinking about drafting a quarterback. So, Kirk Cousins didn't want to have to deal with that. And it was just the right time for him to move on and go to the Falcons because the Lions kind of took over the NFC North. And, to get a fresh start and not really have to worry about any other quarterback on the roster, I don't think Desmond Ridder can challenge Kirk Cousins. I think the gap between Desmond Ridder and Kirk Cousins is too big. So I don't think Kirk Cousins has anything to worry about when you also factor in that, the Falcons are going to give Kirk Cousins a huge payday. Why would, they, kill Kirk Cousins' confidence by giving Desmond Ridder some starts or by applying the pressure with Desmond Ridder? It doesn't make any sense. If they're spending big on Kirk Cousins, they're going to be reluctant to bench him for any quarterback, whether it's Desmond Ridder or someone else, whoever it might be. So Kirk Cousins is a Falcon. I think this is good for the Falcons because if you really look at this team, they got a lot of offensive talent. The one thing they're missing is a quarterback. That's the one thing they're missing on that offensive side of the ball. You look at their weapons, you got Drake London, you got Kyle Pitts, you have Bijan Robinson, you have Tyler Algier. So there's weapons there. They have the supporting cast. They just need that quarterback to come in and take them to that next level. They believe Kirk Cousins can be that guy. It's going to be interesting to see, how things shake out in that NFC South division. Remember, the Bucs were the team to beat in this division this past year. They went to the playoffs with Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans. Those guys are both coming back. So, to me, I think Kirk Cousins is actually better than Baker Mayfield. I do. I know Baker Mayfield is younger, but if I had to pick, off talent alone, Kirk Cousins is probably more talented than Baker Mayfield. I'm going to confirm it. He is more talented than Baker Mayfield. There's no probably about it. So this has a real opportunity to be a splash for the Falcons, and they can really gain some ground in this NFC South division. I think, they're right there with the Bucs now because they have Kirk Cousins. We all know that Cousins throws a really pretty ball. You look at what he did in that first half of the season this past year with the Vikings. I mean, he was throwing the ball really well, and he can just do so many things as a passer. If he needs to float it and put some touch on his pass and, make it a nice, easy catch for the receiver, he can do that. If he needs to, take the top off the defense and throw deep down the field, we saw him do that a lot, with Jordan Addison this past year. Going from, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison is a change, but he's got some young talent in Drake London and Kyle Pitts that, he can obviously tap into and get the most out of those guys. I think one question we have to ask is, can Kirk Cousins get Kyle Pitts back on track? Because we know how big that will be for the Falcons. If Kyle Pitts, turns into the player that he was at Florida, I mean, it's going to be really dangerous for the rest of these teams in this division because Kyle Pitts can be a nightmare. They didn't really have the quarterback to bring the best out of Kyle Pitts yet. Now they have that guy in Kirk Cousins. So much of this team's future is dependent on Kyle Pitts. And when you're getting nothing out of that guy, a first-round pick and one of the most talented tight ends we've ever seen, you can understand why they wanted to get a big name quarterback in here and why they were okay spending big on the quarterback position, because it has the possibility of unlocking Kyle Pitts' potential, which would also help the Falcons gain a lot of ground in this division. Because if Kyle Pitts gets back to, putting up touchdowns left and right, he's going to be so good in the red zone. The scoring for this team is going to just go through the roof. And we're going to see a much more dangerous Falcons team. I like the fact that there's 2 running backs there with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. Those 2 guys can tote the pill and, wear teams down. That's a nice little thing to lean on if you're Kirk Cousins. A 2-headed rushing attack that can wear teams down and commit defenses to stopping the run. And then when you have a pure passer like Kirk Cousins, who can find those windows, who can find the opening in the defense and really pinpoint those throws, you can see how everything is going to connect, and it's going to really, unlock this team's potential. I know I said that for Kyle Pitts too, but, those things are all interconnected. You have Kyle Pitts stepping up, you have the Falcons offense as a whole stepping up, and then you have Kirk Cousins making all the throws. Now, as far as Kirk Cousins goes, he is a little bit older. What's he, 35 years old, coming off an injury. So those are the challenges for Kirk Cousins moving forward, but these injuries aren't what they were in the past. A guy tears an Achilles in the past or tears an ACL in the past, his career is over. Now these guys are back the following year. That's going to be the case with Kirk Cousins. He's going to be back. He'll be ready to go. And I don't think it's really going to slow him down too much. I think he bounces back. I think he's going to be the same player that he was. I just think when you look at the things that he does well, his ability to distribute the football and, just the skill that he has as a passer, you don't lose that. The injury that he had, it might hurt a little tiny bit of his athleticism, but, he's a pocket passer. It's not like he's Desmond Ridder, who's going to be running around the end all the time and trying to tuck it and score a touchdown. The Falcons are completely shifting their offensive identity and what they do at the quarterback position. They're going from a scrambler with Desmond Ridder to a true pocket passer with Kirk Cousins, a guy who's going to stand in the pocket, let his offensive line do their job, and then he's not going to run around too much. He's just going to put his back foot in the dirt and beat you with his arm. So I think that definitely makes the Falcons an offense that is to be feared. I think they make huge strides with Kirk Cousins back there. I think it's going to be huge for Drake London too. It's not just Kyle Pitts. Drake London's going to be even better too. And it changes the Falcons as a destination because maybe they're not done yet. Maybe they go out there and get some more pieces. And if you're a free agent, you're looking at the Falcons now and you're thinking, hey, I can play for this team because they have a good quarterback. They're heading in the right direction. They just got a lot better. Now's the time to be a part of the Falcons. You got a new head coach in Raheem Morris. And, for him to take over this team, I think a lot of guys are going to be excited about playing for him too. So a lot of exciting things happening for the Falcons right now. And it was smart to get this contract done at the beginning of free agency because now you can go get some of these other free agents. You get this deal done on day one, and it's like, who else is coming too? Someone else is going to want to play for this team. There's no denying that. Someone else is going to want to join the Falcons. And, when you have brand new leadership for team, Raheem Morris, Kirk Cousins, it's completely going from a team that, lacks stability a little bit with Arthur Smith. And, they did a good job during that era getting these different offensive pieces that made it, attractive for Kirk Cousins, because if you don't go and get Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, Kirk Cousins probably doesn't come there in the first place. But, even though there was instability with Arthur Smith because he couldn't bring this whole thing together, one thing they did do in the era, and it's really the front office more than the coaching staff. I'm sure Arthur Smith had a little bit of a say in all this, but really it's the front office, the general manager, all the people in the scouting department. They went and got those key pieces on the offensive side of the ball. Clearly their identity as a team is an offensive team. That's what they're aiming for, and they proved that even more so by going out and getting Kirk Cousins. So it's a splash. There's no denying that. It's a splash. I like Kirk Cousins as a player. I really started to kind of change how I felt about Kirk Cousins, I'd say probably the last couple of years. Because before that, I felt like he's not competitive enough. He was always a great thrower of the football. He's always been a talented passer, but he wasn't competitive enough. But something happened these last 2 or 3 years which kind of changed, and the switch flipped for Kirk Cousins. What happened is, because he evolved from where he was at to an even better passer, because he's so skilled as a quarterback, that it made him more competitive. Not because he necessarily has that fire burning inside of him. That's not Kirk Cousins. It's more the fact that he's just so skilled. He is very skilled, and he proved that more so the last 2 years. And he was skilled before that, but he really evolved to another level, to the point where you're like, okay, this guy is putting up huge numbers in the first half of that season. He was digging the Vikings out of a hole because they kind of got off to a bad start, and he was kind of digging them out of that hole, and things were starting to shape up for that team. But, Kirk Cousins gets injured and things kind of unravel for the Vikings down the stretch. But he did make huge strides, particularly these past 2 years, to the point where you're like, oh my God, this guy just hit another level, and he's throwing the football better than he ever has. This is the best version of Kirk Cousins. Now, moving forward to the Falcons, like I said, he's got to overcome that injury. We've got to see how he bounces back from that injury. But like I said, he's a pocket passer. He's not a Desmond Ridder scrambler who needs a ton of athleticism. And we've seen, Tom Brady deal with injuries and bounce back. And because he's a pocket passer who doesn't run too often, it doesn't really hold those pocket passers back that much, because they're getting it done with their arms and not with their legs. So from a talent standpoint, when you look at what Kirk Cousins has become, you have to be so excited if you're a Falcons fan, just because you're like, okay, we have these young weapons in Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. You have Kirk Cousins getting the ball out to these guys, distributing the football, making sure they can catch and turn up field and run and get off to the races. Oh my God, this Falcons offense is going to be explosive, and they have a chance to dominate the NFL. They're going to be that good. They're going to be special. And, Raheem Morris, he's going to take care of that defense, get those guys to play in sync, get them lined up, make sure their heads are screwed on straight and they're focused. And then you have everything taken care of with all the talent you have on offense. And then you add Kirk Cousins to the mix too. So really impressive work by the Falcons. Kirk Cousins was, the top free agent on the board right now because he is so skilled at this moment. And so many teams were waiting to see where Kirk Cousins go so the other dominoes could fall. So that's very telling too, when Kirk Cousins is kind of dictating the market for all these teams, because all these teams are waiting to see if their bid on Kirk Cousins goes through. And if it doesn't, we've been hearing for a while that he was leaning towards the Falcons. Well, now these other teams have to go with their plan B. The Vikings need to figure out what they're going to do. Are they going to try to find a bridge quarterback? Are they going to draft a quarterback? All the other teams that were bidding for Kirk Cousins and wanted Kirk Cousins to come play for them. They have to go to their second or third option or the draft and figure out what they're going to do. So the fact that the Falcons were able to get this guy that all these teams were kind of keeping an eye on to see what decision does he make, I think that's very telling for the Falcons. So things are shaping up. And like I said, they still have free agency to address this team, to keep filling in, the pieces of the puzzle. They still have the draft. If I'm the Falcons, I'm sticking on offense. I might even go get another receiver. I might go get another receiver and really, turn this thing up. Because clearly your identity is an offensive football team. We all know that. There's no debating that. So, it's better to be great at one thing than to be good at a lot of things. And I just feel like if you go defense, you have a chance to really put your stamp on this team by sticking with offense. And I know some people might think that's overloading the offense a little bit, but you already have all these pieces. You have Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. Get another receiver opposite of Drake London, which makes these teams respect both sidelines of the field. And guess what? Watch how that thing parts like the Red Sea for Kyle Pitts. To me, that's the best course of action. And I'm going offense if I'm the Falcons. And then the later rounds, 2nd through 7, I'm focusing on defense. And I would probably get a free agent in defense. But that number 1 pick, I might be thinking another receiver that's a dog. Someone that can come in and really, command some respect opposite of Drake London, because now you have an offense that's finalized. I mean, they are finalized if you get another wide receiver, to the point where it's like this team is stacked all across the board. You gave Kirk Cousins the best chance to succeed, because remember, he's coming from Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. I can make a case that Jordan Addison was almost the best rookie wide receiver last year. I mean, Jordan Addison balled out. And you have Justin Jefferson, who's been in the conversation for best wide receiver in the whole NFL for the past, 2 years now. So Kirk Cousins had some really good wide receivers. So you really want him to be in a similar situation if you're the Falcons. And you really want him to have all these weapons at his disposal, so that he can come in and just light it up and energize this team with the things that he does well, which is, delivering the football. If he has to put it right on the money so his guy can, make the catch on a slant and get down because that safety's coming down to deliver a hit, the receiver breaks off in front of the corner, but that safety kind of read it and he's coming down to make a hit. Kirk Cousins can throw it low, so Drake London can go down low, catch the slant, and get under the hit. That's how you protect your wide receiver. Kirk Cousins is good enough to pinpoint accuracy those throws. He is. I mean, he's proven that, particularly over the past couple years. So, I mean, if you're the Vikings and you're Justin Jefferson and you're Jordan Addison, you're bummed out right now. You lost your guy. There's a reason Justin Jefferson was putting up those huge numbers. And don't get me wrong, Justin Jefferson is supremely talented, but Kirk Cousins was helping Justin Jefferson. If the Vikings get a bad quarterback in there that can't, make a lot of throws, it could hurt Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison's stock. So the fact that the Falcons were able to pluck this guy away from the Vikings and, they paid him, they got the 4-year deal done. I'm not sure how much he got paid yet. I believe it's going to be over $40 million a year. And I think it's going to be a smart deal for the Falcons, because in the NFL, you either have a quarterback or you don't. If you don't have a quarterback, we've seen how much it's held this team back over, the past 2 or 3 years, ever since Matt Ryan left. And at the end there, Matt Ryan was starting to slow down a little bit and starting to lose it. Not that he was a bad player. He had some great years with the Falcons, but we all know at the end there, with him and Julio Jones, it was just time. It was just time. It ran its course. It was time. And, the Falcons were hoping maybe Desmond Ridder could step up and be the guy, but Desmond Ridder wasn't polished enough as a passer. He could scramble and make plays. We've seen him roll out and make some nice throws, but it wasn't enough, and it just had to be better at the quarterback position. And there's no denying that Kirk Cousins is going to be better. This is the best option this team has had since Matt Ryan. And there's already optimism around this team. Just by landing Kirk Cousins, it transforms this whole team into a contender. They're a contender. They're going to have a shot at getting one of those playoff spots. I like the Raheem Morris hire as their head coach. I like the fact that they went out and got Kirk Cousins, and you can't just leave it to a rookie quarterback that's a unknown commodity. You need a guy that can get it done, a guy that can lead this team. And I kind of suspected that Kirk Cousins was going to Atlanta when I seen that he was going to a jeweler and getting a grill. I seen him get a necklace, a new necklace. So he got a grill, he got a necklace, and I started thinking to myself, you know what? That kind of feels like Atlanta. You know what I mean? Atlanta's got a lot of swag. There's a lot of swagger down there in Atlanta. There's so much culture and all those artists and all those musicians that are coming out of Atlanta. And they have a lot of good things going for that city. So when I seen Kirk Cousins, making sure that his swagger was right, I started thinking to myself, that seems like a move if he was going to Atlanta. Why would he be getting a grill? Why would he be getting a new chain? I figured he was going to Atlanta. Now, don't get me wrong. When Kirk Cousins was having all the success, he was wearing all his teammates' chains when he was with the Vikings. Like on the planes flying back and stuff, they would all put their chains on Kirk Cousins, so he was all blinged out, and they would take videos. Just the team having fun. But when I seen he went to the jeweler and made sure he got his own grill, when I seen him go to the jeweler and make sure he got his own chain, I kind of suspected, man, he's going to Atlanta. This is him kind of reinventing himself. And in Minnesota, he wore everybody else's chains. But now that he's going to Atlanta, he's going to have his own grill. He's going to have his own chain. So when he walks in that locker room on day one, it makes a statement. Hey, we're rebranding ourselves. This city has so much swagger and so much culture. Guess what? We're bringing our own swagger. We're bringing our own culture, and things are going to be better than they were in the past. So to me, Kirk Cousins going out and doing those things and really making sure that he's having fun so it's contagious for the rest of his teammates, because when they see him walk in wearing a grill and wearing a chain, they're going to be smiling and having fun, and it's a tone setter. It's a tone setter for that team. Right away, they're like, okay, this is different. It hasn't been like this in the past before. And this is fun. It's different. It's fun. It's unique. And, with his track record of wearing all his teammates' jewelry, it's not phony. All the guys in the league saw Kirk Cousins wearing all that bling, wearing all those chains, and doing his dance and having fun. So when he walks in that locker room on day one with all that bling on, they're like, okay, let's go. It's time. And like I said, it doesn't feel phony. It feels authentic because in the past, he's kind of built up this reputation of a guy that has fun and will throw the chains on and crack some jokes with the guys. Because, when you're a quarterback and you play the quarterback position, a lot of times your teammates think you're a pretty boy. A lot of times the team even hates the quarterback because they're like, he's soft and he's getting all the attention and things like that. So when you're the quarterback and you're a guy like Kirk Cousins, any way you can connect with your teammates and any time you can lighten things up a little bit, I think it's better for the team, and I think it's conducive for success. And Kirk Cousins, it took him a while to kind of get to that point. Remember in the past, he was like with the Washington Commanders, he had the "you like that" moment. He was known for "you like that." And that's what he was always known for. You like that when he had that win with the Commanders. So every time, he would perform well, people would be posting online, you like that and things like that. But, when he struggled a little bit, they would clown him too and be like, you like that, and kind of throw it back in his face. Well, he kind of, rebranded again when he turned into this beast with the Vikings, where he threw everybody's chains on, where they were calling him Kirko, and he had more swagger than he did early on in his career. That guy that said, you like that, didn't have the swag that the guy with the Vikings did, where he was throwing on all those chains and having fun with the team to the point where he was embraced by that football team. The guys were buying in. They bought into Kirk Cousins. They were following him into battle, and they were motivated to play with Kirk Cousins, which isn't easy to do. If, the rest of those guys don't like you for whatever reason, the team doesn't perform as well, then the team doesn't have success. Well, since Kirk Cousins got his teammates to buy in with the Vikings, I think that's another good sign for the Falcons, because, he learned how to make changes with himself to connect with his teammates. And one of those things was making sure that he had more fun, making sure that he lightened up, making sure that, everybody else on the team was having fun too, because that's very important. Not only is he having fun, the rest of the guys are having fun too. So it's all across the board. Everybody's having a good time. And, results tend to follow when everybody's having a good time. So that's what Kirk Cousins is going to bring to the Falcons. A huge splash on day one of free agency for the NFL. The number one free agent on the board goes to the Falcons. Suddenly the Falcons are making huge progress in the NFC South. Remember, the Buccaneers were the team to beat in this division this past year. I think the Falcons and the Buccaneers are neck and neck right now. And one other thing about the Buccaneers is, Mike Evans is getting older. Chris Godwin is getting older. Baker Mayfield's younger, but Mike Evans is getting older and Chris Godwin is getting older. So when Mike Evans gets old and he's not firing on all cylinders like he used to, that's when things are going to open up for the rest of this division, because the Buccaneers will not be the same team if Mike Evans isn't the same Mike Evans that we've always known him to be. And we're starting to get, to the twilight of Mike Evans' career. Now, don't get me wrong, he's still performing at a high level, but he is getting older. And at some point, when your receivers start to get older, they can hit the wall very fast to the point where they're not getting open as much. So that's really going to open the door for the Falcons in this division, because Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, those guys are all young pups that are licking their chops. They're hungry to get after it. They're hungry to take over this NFC South division. I think Kirk Cousins comes in, and it's really going to be neck and neck between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. I don't think Carolina's there yet. I don't think Carolina's there yet at all with, Bryce Young. He's got too far to go. They don't have enough weapons. The Bryce Young pick, I don't even know if that's going to pan out for the Panthers. They were so bad this past year that they have just a lot of work before they're a real competitor. Now, we'll see what happens with the Saints. They seem to be, going backwards a little bit too since Sean Payton left. So to me, like I said, when you're looking at this division, you got to be thinking Falcons, Buccaneers, and Kirk Cousins is a guy that could tilt this division in the Falcons' favor. He is. Kirk Cousins is good enough to do that, because Kirk Cousins is better than Baker Mayfield. I think the receivers that the Buccaneers have are pretty good with, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So Kyle Pitts and Drake London really have to step up. But to me, that's why you go get another wide receiver in the draft. Because if you get another wide receiver in the draft, suddenly your weapons might leapfrog Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And if you have a better quarterback and you have better weapons, now suddenly we could see the Falcons surpass the Buccaneers in that NFC South division. It's going to come down to those two teams. So if you're the Falcons, go get another weapon and make sure you're better at the quarterback position and you're better at the wide receiver position and the tight end position too. Don't leave it up to chance because, Todd Bowles, a lot of people like to hate on Todd Bowles, but he is a good defensive coach. You go back to his time with the Jets, he was a good coach with the Jets. So that's why the Buccaneers started to kind of figure it out because, Todd Bowles is so good. A lot of people don't think he's good for some reason. Those aren't real football fans. Everybody knows Todd Bowles is a good coach, which is why the Buccaneers bounced back this past year. Baker Mayfield gets a lot of credit, but don't overlook what Todd Bowles does for that team. So if you're the Falcons, you got to go against this Todd Bowles defense, and he's always going to have his guys in the right spot. You got to beat them with your talent. You can't leave it up to chance. You have to beat them with your talent. So go get another wide receiver, stack this offense, let Kirk Cousins throw bombs all over Todd Bowles' defense. Now you're better on offense than the Bucs are on their offense. Now you have an offense that can put Todd Bowles on his heels a little bit because Kirk Cousins is picking, that blitzing defense apart because, Todd Bowles and that Buccaneers defense likes to blitz from every angle, and they're going to put pressure on you and make you make quick decisions. But Kirk Cousins is good enough where he can get that ball out quick and get it to the right spot. That's the good thing about Kirk Cousins. He's seen all these blitzes before. He's seen everything this league can throw at him. He's seen it all before. So he's going to be ready, and he's going to get the ball out of his hands quickly, and he's going to get it to Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, whoever it may be. That's really all I got for this latest episode, though. The Falcons are winning free agency right now. There's so much hype around this team. There's so much to celebrate if you're a fan of the Falcons. So, you got to be feeling good right now if you're down there in Atlanta or if you root for the Falcons because things are about to get a whole lot better. I'm John Kuzma. Thank you guys for listening to the Football Game Tonight podcast. I'm signing off.